You're watching this special NewsX Business World panel on the Indian economy and the government stimulus package. Let's also get some comments, perhaps, Dr. Batra, on another measure that the government has taken. In fact, just today, the RBI governor made some key announcements for more liquidity.
I must say that the government has been active and in some cases proactive, and the government has been in motion. It's been in the play. It's dynamically introduced interventions, and today's RBI intervention or cutting the repo rate has its own advantage. It also, increased the outlay for loans from 25%.
One second. We're going to have to take that again because I've just realized that this is playing out tomorrow, so we can't say today.
Today. Okay.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Yesterday.
Welcome back from the break. You're watching this special NewsX Business World panel on the Indian economy and on the government stimulus. Now, before we throw it open to our panel at large, we of course heard their opening comments before we took the break. Dr. Batra, let's also talk a bit about the RBI's measures that they've taken yesterday. The RBI governor coming out with a host of announcements for more liquidity. More liquidity is needed. More demand needs to be created. That's what a lot of economic analysts have been saying, isn't it?
Uday, the government has been in play. The government has been active and proactive, and it has continuously tried to address various aspects of one, making sure that the companies survive. Second, there are big bang reforms so that structurally we change on compliance, on MSME. Today, the RBI cut the repo rate by 40 BPS, by basis points. Moratorium extended by another 3 months, totaling now to 6 months. Accumulated interest to be converted, term loan or FITL. Single group exposure limit going up from 25% to 30%. Also, some measures on exit back the RBI took yesterday. RBI is expecting with all these measures, at least the inflation to fall below 4% gradually. So I would say that the RBI is trying to do its best.
Yes.
We all have been talking of liquidity, putting hands in the pockets of the entrepreneurs so that they can make sure that payrolls continue the operation. So these measures are aimed at liquidity. I think that's what RBI did yesterday, and I won't be surprised in some time to see more intervention from RBI. I'd like to start with Mr. Sengupta.
Yeah.
Mr. Sengupta, you had SAP for the subcontinent. When you talk to your customers, SAP's customers are large corporations. When you talk to the CEOs, CIOs, CFOs, what is the sentiment you get on business? Are they happy with what has come from the government, or there is an expectation to get more?
So I guess I think the sentiment is obviously they would expect because if you look at the reforms and the measures which is done, it is mostly targeted to the SMEs, agriculture sector and the core sectors. Since we serve across 26 different industries, and especially for the large corporations, they were expecting, whether it is automotive and things like that, they were expecting maybe a more bailout package and things like that. Especially aviation, airlines, hotel, they were expecting those kind of things.
There's nothing for QSR, hotel, restaurants. Yeah. There's nothing for the hospitality industry.
Right.
There's nothing for airlines. So really, they're very large sectors. They employ collectively more than 100 million people, and in some way, they are accelerators of the economy. And so, if we may not need them right now because we may be worried about traveling or staying in hotels. But in 3 months, 6 months, we may need them. And it may not be so easy to get them back to full speed. So we have to think through that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in that, when you work with these kind of constraints, I think you focus on 3 things. Obviously, your cash management, how you measure your cash and working capital. Obviously, pay off employees and, manage your debts. That's number 1. How do you when you get back to work, right? In what form and mode you're going to get back to work, and what's the kind of likely demand which is going to happen? And number 3, while we spoke about the entire consumption is changed. Possibly it will not be the same what was post and pre, right? So I think these are the things which I would say most CEOs and boards are pretty much grappling with. How do I manage a business continuity at the same point of time? How do I adjust to the new normal? It's a very, very tight balancing act.
Okay.
Keshav, I want to ask you, your sector is dependent on construction activity. It is dependent on how the real estate sector does. It is dependent on the sentiment that people are doing up their homes, they're preparing for more business. Now, you were hit on the production side, you were hit on the activity from customer side, you were hit from retailing side. Tell us, really, how will you get your numbers up? Is there a plan that the players in your sector have? Because the construction activity may come back, but it may be nowhere near where we wanted it to be before the lockdown. Keshav?
So let me break this into two parts. You see, firstly, if I speak about my company, we have actually been exploring each and every single facet, whatever you have mentioned. I think you'll be a little bit surprised, but we started production as early as 20th of April last month. So we have an export consumer base. We export one of our products, laminates, to various countries. And that started manufacturing on the 20th of last month itself. And since then, it has continued in production, despite the storm that was there over the course of the past 2 days, Amphan, which really caused a lot of damage. Still, we are back at production today. When it comes to the market, as you said, sentiment is extremely poor. In the short term, there will be a hit. But what we are trying to do is further reinforce our supply chain. If a product is available, anyone who has an urgent requirement will be purchasing that product. It is not that work is going to stop indefinitely, particularly if you look at rural markets. I was extremely surprised to know that some of my smaller branches have already done the numbers for May. And I asked them how the economy has just come out of a lockdown. They said, sir, construction activity did not stop. It was that we weren't being able to supply. The day that we were allowed, again, we started selling.
Yes.
So I think there is a demand. It is not that the demand.
And that's an important point, Keshav, you made earlier, that you've started exporting already as well, because India is going to try and take advantage of the situation as well. We want to get now on the global map of supply chains. We need to be part of these global supply chains, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. One more point that Dr. Batra had mentioned. If you look at the channel, our channel was struggling earlier also. There was a liquidity crunch with channel partners. Everybody is aware. The banks were flush with liquidity, but somehow or the other, there was a mismatch and it wasn't flowing through. Today, what we have as a company decided is we will extend extra credit to our channel. Now, we are in a financially strong position. Our cost of borrowing is close to 6% per year. And we are going to actually help or use that to help our consumer base. That is a two-way, it's a two-way sort of a transaction, because the retailer who is getting this extra credit from us is going to try and maximize it and give back the benefit to us.
Okay, let's get Ashish Bhutani also to weigh in, on this
Ashish,
macro issue.
The fact that work from home makes, Uday is doing this from home. I'm doing this from home. I'm assuming that you're possibly, most of the panelists are at home. So if office space demand comes down, how does it impact the real estate sector? How does it impact your operations?
First of all, sir, I've been in office from the 4th of May. Second of all, I'll come in with all the facts and figures. Let me just ask you a simple question. Are you happy working from home?
For now, yes. The honest answer is for now, yes.
I am talking about in the long term.
Hopefully not forever.
Yes, exactly the point. There was a study by Economic Times as early as on the 10th of April. It was published in the newspaper as well, where they revealed 99.8% of the people are unhappy working at home. Work now is not just about sitting on a computer doing your work. It's about networking. It's about sharing ideas. Sitting at home, it's an example how you and me also met. We were out at a conference somewhere and we were just eating something and we exchanged numbers, and that's how we met. So right. Working from home is never actually the solution. Mr. Satya Nadella is one of the most prominent figures of the world. About 6-7 days ago, there was an article where he said people are blabbering about work from home, but it will actually bring depression and anxiety amongst the people.
Yeah.
Work from home can never be possible. See, with all due respect, everybody loves their spouses, but after a while, how long can you sit at home the entire day with them and work? One of them is bound to throw the other one out of the house. It's as simple as that.
Well, yes. Unfortunately, divorces, separations, the cases of abuse are going up. So you have a point there.
You have a point that this is a temporary phase, and as things get better, people will want to have the same quality of interactions that they have in an office setting.
Before the break, you had asked a direct question to Ashish. Why didn't you answer that now, Ashish?
Yeah,
Dr.
please.
I had asked you a direct question. You want to repeat that, Dr.
Like TCS said, 50% of its workforce can work from home for the next 12 months. And that's how I asked the question to
now.
But he answered that, he sees it as a temporary situation, and as things get back to normal, the office of the past will also become the office of future. I think that
another very quick point. TCS said not 50%. They initially proposed more. Now they're down to 50%. What happens is the government changed the norms. 10,000 square feet, where the spacing 65 square feet was required per person. Now it is 125 square feet after coronavirus came in. So basically, TCS now requires exactly twice the amount of office space that was there. Now, some people might be able to work from home, but India, if it needs to produce twice the amount of offices that are already there, you can very well assume where the demand and the prices will go in the next 1 year.
That's a very important number you brought in.
Goldie, let's take it. Is Goldie there?
I just want to respond to your comment.
Yeah, please.
What the media and advertising and communication ecosystem is dependent on how the economy does, how the demand is. And one of the big demands of the media sector is please to the government, and government has done some bit of it, is to release the past news of media owners, whether it's newspapers, news channels, other media outlets. So I think the government has already done a part of it, and you will see government doing more and more of it. So I just wanted to kind of give you that input. I don't have a question for you.
Yeah, let me bring back Divya Lal. Divya Lal, at the end of the day, you were saying, of course, that schools need to be encouraged to go digital as well. But in rural India, how do you really see that happening? Because while in urban India, yes, online classes are taking place with much gusto and at schools and colleges. But what about rural India, where everyone doesn't own a laptop or a tablet or have amazing internet connectivity? So what's going to happen there?
Yeah, I think Uday, the solution lies with the providers like us. Okay. When we create a solution, our idea was always to reach to the last mile child. And that is why it has to be platform agnostic. It does not matter what you're using. Okay. If you have a phone and a basic WhatsApp level, which works even in rural India as much as we go, pretty much, it will work. So you need to define solutions that can actually work at that lower rate of broadband capabilities, etc., or if I may say connectivity pieces. You need to make it simple so that it is intuitive. People don't need too much of training. You can go to rural India and hand over a video game to any child and they will play with it with zero training from you. Okay. And similarly, education can replicate that phenomena. So I think one of the larger parts we have played is with gamifying the whole education piece as one of the big segments. Make it fun. It doesn't need to be boring just because you're studying, right?
Yeah. You are saying that the digital divide is not impacting education. You are saying there's no digital divide.
You can reach out. I believe now is the era where broadband should become an essential right to every citizen. Okay. And I think that is where government can step in and establish it as that enabling broadband to the last miles in a lot of way and making it an essential right to a human being today. If we are saying, that all of us are going to work irrespective of where we are, whether we are working out of offices or schools or, inside our homes, I think staying connected will be imperative to the entire thing.
Okay. At this point, I want to bring in Goldie again. Goldie.
I think Goldie is not there with us currently.
So we'll get Seema in. Get Seema in. And Seema, you said that when you talk to entrepreneurs, it is about survival. So tell us, what do these entrepreneurs expect out of the government that is not yet there in the stimulus?
So I think the entrepreneurs look more for tax benefits, where their services are being able to be accessed by consumers at a lower tax rate. So 18% GST. As we come back to the GST issue. Now I will divide it into three different brackets. One is the entrepreneurs which are really startups, and
they're looking at a tax holiday.
Right.
They're either reduction of the tax or tax holiday, or at least for a while there should be a tax holiday.
Right. And the tax holiday is for a very limited number of startups, which if you are registered with the startup scheme, but not for everybody. 99% of people are not registered and that they are suffering and that there's a tax issue. The entrepreneurs is one issue, but there's even the, the mid-level companies, the CFOs and CEOs, their biggest worry right now, if we see right now, is a reoperationalization of the industry, but wage bills is another big issue. They were really looking, and the biggest question which the industry has been raising in the last CFOs and CEOs that I've spoken in the last 55 days is, when will the government come and support us in the wage bill? They are helping everybody else, but how do the mid-sized companies or the larger corporates for that matter survive with the large wage bills? And then on top of that, you have directions from the MHA saying, which is not existent in now, but they were a ruling from the MHA direction saying that you have to pay the wage bill to all your workmen. So that is a huge burden, and a survival issue was brought in, that how do we survive in a situation where there's no revenue, zero sales, and we have to pay the wage.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest concern, which has been eased right now. But still, the labor laws of the country still applies to any kind of reduction that you do.
And there's a lot of flip-flopping happening. You see,
right.
On labor laws, states
Right,
have taken a decision, but then there is opposition. So they may reverse those decisions. Also, those decisions have been challenged in court. So you're right. You brought out that labor laws point, but there's a lot of flip-flop happening, and there's no uniformity between all states.
Right.
So if you see, one of the biggest. Go ahead.
Yeah, what Delhi came out, moment the MHA order of March 29th came, Delhi came out with a direction that the wage bill has to be paid, no matter if there's no revenue. Haryana came with a little bit of a advisory instead of a direction. Maharashtra again came with a direction rather than advisory. And even when on 18th of May, when the MHA order was withdrawn, that no wage bill, I mean, they sort of tactically withdrew that order. The Maharashtra government still continued with their earlier direction to continue with, indirectly. So there's a lot of confusion in the industry, whether they have to continue paying or not. Can we retrench? Can we lay off? Can we bring in the normal Industrial Dispute Act and the employment agreement in play and not be forced to not retrench, not terminate, and keep, agree for the reduction of the wages? That is the biggest concern right now that the industry,
Uday,
which hasn't happened.
Seema is talking about capital. Every entrepreneur leader is talking about capital. Sandeep, funding was very easily available, relatively easily available before March. As the funding dries up in the last 60 days, what do you think is needed for the startups to survive? One is, of course, innovation. But beyond that, tell us, if funding dries up, are we going to see a large number of startups hold shop?
Yeah, Anurag, that's a great question. Startups basically have a habit of borrowing money from their future to prove the scale and the value proposition now. So while the cost of doing new business from industrial revolution until now has come down every year, there are low entry barrier, but we as a startup community stay dependent on outside capital anywhere between 1 or 2 years if you're lucky to 10, 12, 15 years, right? And then, cost of capital as it is not unlike US where the cost of capital is 2%, Japan maybe 0.1%, in Europe maybe 3%, it is 12 to 15% in India. So as it is, cost of capital is very high. The ecosystem of startup was starting to evolve last 5-6 years. So to your point, yes, a lot of startups are already failing. Because there's no shortcut to gestation. So if they need 3 years to establish and prove their worth, and if you pull the oxygen, they will die, and that's what's happening. And unfortunately, some of that was happening also because of some very large investors who had taken very, very large bet. They were already not panning out. So that was already a drag on the industry. And now with this pandemic, there's absolutely no money. Even if the money is available, it is very difficult to establish the valuation, because what do you use to establish the valuation? You are public, you are not a publicly traded stock, and then your last month number could be zero, right? So it's very, very difficult environment right now.
So hence, one of the things we keep comparing ourselves with China, while jobs are going to Vietnam, in KPO, in textile, what the Chinese government supports their startups. They go in herds to a country. They not only provide cheap capital from their banks. Let's take the handset example. Distributors come in with the, with the players, and then the ecosystem is supported by the government. What do you think the government can do to help startups survive? Because if some of these startups survive, possibly they will become very large enterprises, which create value, which give jobs. So what is the intervention that the government could do to help startups?
So Anurag, I would say maybe just three things quickly from my side on that topic. Number one is, like any other industry, here in this panel, different people are representing various industries. So whether it is lowering our tax rate, lowering anything which we owe to government, of course that can help. But that, reality is we don't owe much to government, right? But the other one is, even a country like France, they beginning of April, they announced $4.5 billion startup package alone for access to the capital. Now, France is known for fashion and cosmetic, but not for startup. So they announced a $4.5 billion package.
Some sort of support for the working capital is needed for startups. Okay, we're completely out of time. Do you want to do your quick rapid fire?
Yeah, so I'll start with Seema, because I want you to tell us in 3 to 5 words, how do you rate the economic stimulus and what do you want from the government? I'll start with Seema Jingan Ahluwalia. In 3 or 5 words.
I think some concessions which could have directly been given to people at large, specifically the migrant workers, because that's where the real pain is happening. It's a question of survival there. Plus,
okay, I'm going to stop you there. Just it's rapid fire.
Very short.
Rapid fire.
Yes,
so one
rapid
sentence.
fire.
Yeah.
3 words, 5 words.
Yes. Who's going next?
I'll go next. I'll go next. Make broadband available and cheaper devices for parents and students to, enable learning.
Mr. Bhutani.
Good. More innovation is required.
Mr. Sen Gupta.
Use the opportunity to reimagine business and business models.
Mr. Bhajanka.
Good package. Consumption needs to be boosted. Look at GST.
Back to you there.
And Sandeep, last word.
Yes.
So I would say maybe $5 billion all India startup package plus maybe 10 million square footage for the co-working space without any charges.
We can talk about it.
Yeah, Ashish is happy.
Yes, Ajit.
Okay. Well, we leave it at that. So at the end of the day, industries need each other. There's going to be not competitiveness, but collaboration happening. And let's hope that's the sentiment that continues in the days to come as well. Challenging times, but challenging times come for greater resilience and greater fortitude as well. And let's certainly hope that for all of India. We leave it at that. My thanks to all of our panelists for joining us. Thanks to Dr.
Thank you.
As well. Taking a very short break. Back on the other side on NewsX with lots more.